See, you're not unready. You're unmoved. Those are not the same thing, and confusing them has cost you years. Unready means you lack something real, and the fix is to go and get it. Unmoved means you have what you need and you're still standing still. I'm Clarence E. Stowers Jr., 30 years in. I've built things from nothing and watched them come apart. I've stood in rooms where there was no good answer and found a way through anyway. This is Still Standing. I don't teach from theory. I teach from survival. Let's get into it. In 2022, a guy sat across from me. For years, he'd been planning to leave his corporate job. Business concept done, prototype built. Client had already said yes to a pilot contract. 12 months of savings sitting in the account untouched. I asked him, what are you waiting for? He went quiet. Then he said what they almost always say, I just don't feel ready yet. I had that conversation more times than I can count. A woman with a real estate strategy she'd been redefining for years. A guy with a business 3 separate people had already told him to launch. Different backgrounds, different resources, same sentence. Not the right season. One more piece needs to fall in place. I'll know when I'm ready. That's you, isn't it? There's one move on your list that has never moved. Not to done, not to the trash. It just keeps sliding to the bottom, week after week, with a new excuse attached. You call it patience. It's not patience. That's what we're getting into today. Welcome to Still Standing. I'm Clarence E. Stowers Jr., and this is a show for the person who's made it through something that was supposed to stop them and is now trying to figure out what to do with still being here. If you're new, here's what you need to know about me. I've spent 30 years in leadership, pastoring, coaching, building organizations, watching them change shape, navigating the gap between the role you hold and the person you actually are underneath. And a few years ago, I went through a season that I did not see coming, a season that stripped a lot of things down. I'm not going to give you the whole story in the first 5 minutes. That's what this season is for. But here's what I want you to know up front. I don't teach from theory. I teach from survival. And today's episode is one I've had to preach to myself because I've done exactly what you're doing. Stood still with everything I needed already in my hands and called it waiting. This season 2 of Still Standing, I'm going further into the honest, specific, sometimes uncomfortable truth of what surviving a real loss actually produces. Not the highlight reel, the real thing. If that's what you came for, stay with me. We've got a lot of ground to cover. And here's the promise of this episode. Readiness is not a feeling you wait for. It's what shows up after you move. Here's the tell. If you were actually waiting on more information, you could name the specific data point you're missing. You can't name it, can you? Because you already have what you need. You're waiting on a feeling, and you've dressed that up in better language. It's a stall with better vocabulary. There's an account that puts this in the sharpest light I've ever seen. It's the move you keep calling patience. You'll see the exact test that tells you whether you're actually waiting or stalling. If you're waiting on information, name the missing data point. If you can't, you're stalling with better vocabulary. And you've had what you need for a while now. How do I know this? I have evidence. There's an old account of a man named Caleb. He's 85 years old, waiting 45 years for land he'd been promised in his prime. The territory was the most fortified region around, and earlier generations stood at the edge of it and reported back that they felt like grasshoppers by comparison and didn't move. Caleb didn't wait. In one line, the deed lands in his hand, and in the very next line, the obstacle is cleared. No gap. He asked for the hardest ground available, specifically because it was the hardest ground available and moved the moment it was his. True story. You remember the guy from earlier, the guy from 2022? Yeah, he eventually left his corporate job, not when he felt ready, but after his first client called and said, "When are we starting?" See, the confidence showed up about 6 weeks in, not at the desk where he'd spent 4 years planning, on the other side of the decision. That's the order every single time. Here's what I know. The feeling is a receipt, not a ticket. I promise you this. See, if you stay with me, you'll understand why the size of your hesitation is actually proof the move is big enough to matter. Facts. You've been treating readiness like a ticket. The thing you have to possess before you're allowed to board. It's not a ticket, it's a receipt. It shows up after the transaction, not before. And here's the question that flips it. If the feeling was never going to show up before you moved, only after, what will you do this week? Let me tell you a story. A farmer who waits for perfect weather never plants because he's always watching the next cloud. If you feel completely ready, the move is too small. The absence of the feeling is confirmation the thing is big enough to count. So here's what you can do right now. Write this down. Name the specific move you've been calling not yet. Write the sentence. I have been waiting to feel ready to do blank. You fill in the blank. And then notice how long it's already been true. Now, here's the distinction that changes how you see the whole stall. Come to the front of the class. You're not unready, you're unmoved. I can almost guarantee you're leaving this episode with a dated concrete action instead of another round of internal preparation. So you're not unready, you're unmoved. Those are not the same thing, and confusing them has cost you years. Unready means you lack something real, and the fix is to go and get it. Unmoved means you have what you need and you're still standing still. Name the one move and take a single concrete action toward it in the next 7 days. Come on, make the call. Open the document. Set the date and tell one person who will actually ask you all about it. It'll work. Trust me, it will work. And here's why. Every time you postpone, the story gets louder. Naming the move out loud with a witness breaks the loop the first time you do it. You're not moving because it finally feels safe. No. You're moving because the feeling was always downstream of the step. So let me bring this home. Readiness is not a feeling you wait for. It's what shows up after you move. You're not unready, you're unmoved. And my guy Caleb didn't wait for a clearer sky. He asked for the hardest ground available and took it the same day it was his. So stop waiting for a feeling that was never coming. Take the step and let readiness catch up to you on the other side. So, what's the one move you've been calling not yet? Go ahead, name it. Take one concrete action toward it in the next 7 days, then reply done when it's scheduled. Thank you for taking time to listen to Still Standing, my podcast, and I want to encourage you to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and then join me on next week. And next week, the obstacle you keep calling a closed door, it's still standing. And I'm going to show you why that's actually good news. Until the next time, get 1% better every day. That's it for Still Standing. If this landed, subscribe now, wherever you're listening. And text this episode to one person who's still standing in something hard. They need to hear it. I'll see you next week.